Today, we're diving into how the real history of an uprising might not be in a textbook, but in a song. How music can become a living, breathing record of the raw emotion and the contested truths of a whole nation in turmoil.
It's a fascinating question, right? I mean, we're all taught that history is something that's written down in official documents and then put into textbooks. But what if the truest history of a national crisis wasn't written down at all, but was actually sung into existence in real time?
So picture this. It's the night of December 6, 2008. In the heart of Athens, a police officer fires his gun. A 15-year-old boy falls to the ground. That single tragic shot would go on to light a fuse that would send the entire country up in flames.
Now, as the authorities and the media were scrambling to control the narrative, something else was happening. A completely different history began to erupt online. On platforms like YouTube, a powerful counter-narrative was being written, not by officials, but by rappers, by punks, and by folk singers.
Okay, so how does this actually work? How can a song literally function as a history book? Well, the answer lies in this really powerful idea that researchers call grassroots documentation. Grassroots documentation is pretty much exactly what it sounds like. It's history told from the ground up, completely bypassing the official channels. The internet, and especially YouTube at the time, became this living, breathing archive for the movement, a digital space where all the unfiltered grief and rage and defiance of a generation could be recorded and shared instantly.
But to really understand the songs, we have to rewind. We have to go back to that single event that ignited everything. It all starts on one fateful night, in a neighborhood that was, you could say, already a powder keg just waiting for a spark.
So here's the breakdown of what happened. Around 9 p.m., two special police guards, Korkonias and Saraliotis, are on patrol in the Exarchia neighborhood. There's some sort of brief verbal argument with a group of teens. And then, Korkonias fires his weapon. One of those bullets hits and kills 15-year-old Alexandros Grigoropoulos. It's just a simple, tragic, and completely irreversible chain of events.
And this is where you have to understand that the location is absolutely crucial. Exarchia isn't just any neighborhood in Athens. For decades, it's been the beating heart of the city's anarchist and anti-authoritarian movements. It's a place with a really deep-seated distrust of the state, and especially of the police. For this to happen here, well, it wasn't just seen as a tragedy. It was seen as a declaration of war. And this is where you see the power of the music as a historical record crystal clear. I mean, look at this lyric. It doesn't just mention the date, December 6th. It names the exact street corner where Alexandros was killed. The songs became these immediate historical markers, documenting the event with the kind of precision you'd expect from a news report.
The death of Alexandros wasn't just a spark. It was like throwing gasoline on a fire that was already smoldering. The uprising that followed was about so much more than one boy's death. It was a total perfect storm. You have to try and put yourself in their shoes. Imagine you're a young person in Greece at this time. It feels like your future has been stolen. Youth unemployment is over 20%. The government is just sinking in corruption scandals. And there are these new education reforms that threaten your one path to a better life. The shooting wasn't just a tragedy. For many, it was the final, brutal confirmation of their deepest fear, that the state wasn't there to protect them, it was their enemy.
So when the riots broke out, that anger was incredibly targeted. Protesters didn't just smash things randomly. No, they went after the symbols of the very powers they felt had failed them. The banks, which represented economic hardship. The luxury stores, which represented inequality. And of course, government buildings and police stations, the most direct symbols of state authority. So, in the days that followed, you have two completely different versions of the story starting to take shape. This was a battle for the truth. And you know what? Music became the opposition's most powerful weapon. And this is exactly what that battle looked like. On one side, you've got the official narrative. The officer fired warning shots, the fatal bullet was a tragic, accidental ricochet, and the police were just acting in self-defense. But on the other side, in the songs that were flooding the internet, the story was brutally simple. This was a cold-blooded execution of an unarmed kid, and the whole ricochet story was just a blatant cover-up.
And just listen to how the music went straight for the official story's jugular. This lyric is just dripping with sarcasm. It's imagining the officer inventing the ricochet lie at the exact moment he cocks his gun. This isn't just a protest song. It's a powerful act of deconstruction. It's calling out the alleged cover-up in real time. These songs didn't just tell a different story, they made it crystal clear who the villains were. The police were labeled as state-sanctioned murderers. The media was accused of just being a mouthpiece for the government. And they saved some special contempt for the defense lawyer, whose courtroom tactics were seen as a second, verbal assault on Alexandros' memory.
Eventually, the fires on the streets were put out. But the fire that was ignited in the music, well, that would burn for years, and it would end up forging the identity of an entire generation.
I mean, if you need any proof of how deep this went, just look at this number. 246. That's how many distinct songs researchers found about the December events, released over the next 16 years. This wasn't some fleeting moment of anger. This was a deep cultural scar that artists kept coming back to, creating this huge musical archive of the trauma.
And the music did something really profound. It created what one lyric calls a parade of the dead. The songs connected the killing of Alexandros to other victims of state and political violence over the decades. People like Michalis Koltezis in 1985 and Pavlos Fyssas in 2013. The music took all these individual tragedies and wove them into one single, unbroken story of injustice.
So in the end, this massive body of music did way more than just document an event. It helped forge an identity. To be young in Greece after 2008 was to be part of the generation of December, a generation whose entire political awakening was defined by a gunshot, the fires that came after, and the defiant soundtrack that gave it all a voice.
And that brings us right back to where we started. The tools change, you know? In 2008, the archive was YouTube. Today, it's TikTok. But the power of that grassroots history is still there. It really makes you wonder, as history unfolds all around us right now, what's the soundtrack that we're creating for it? And who's going to be listening tomorrow?